I'm Kyra Kiles, Vice President of Digital Editorial for Johnson Publishing Company. So I run ebony.com and jetmag.com.
Hi, I'm Gil Robertson, President of the African American Film Critics Association. Today we're at the beautiful Post and Bean restaurant in Baldwin Hills, California.
EBONY and AAFCA are teaming up to confront and hopefully help solve the glaring lack of diversity in Hollywood.
In this Fast Forward series, we're talking to key stakeholders, including content creators, studio executives, casting directors, and the talent that you see on screen.
We do not want to have the Oscars so white discussion ever again.
We start Fast Forward with our first group, the creators. Check out the discussion and then join the conversation via @EbonyMag and @AAFCA using the hashtag FastForward. Hi, thanks for joining us today. We're going to have a lively discussion.
That's right, so let's get it started. And I want to talk about the elephant in the room, Oscars so white. You know, we're all tired of this topic, I know, but I have to ask you if you honestly believe that there will be real and meaningful change after all the kerfuffle about this topic.
I mean, I already see meaningful change, I will say. I see it in conversations that I'm having when I'm not in the room, but they're telling me that we need more color in this movie. We need to find more women. We need to find more filmmakers of color. Now, translation from saying it to doing it, that's where you have to make meaningful steps and actionable steps to make it happen.
No, I agree. I was thinking, since this award weekend, I've been approached by a couple of people looking for the crew list that I was talking about that had department heads that were of color. I also was approached by a film fund. I won't tell you by who, but there's a $60 million urban film fund, and they're looking for a person of color to run it.
I interviewed for that.
There you go. There you go. Of course, Stephanie. No.
Hey.
I'm like this. So I do see that there's meaningful change that are happening, and that people are realizing that diversification doesn't mean anti-white. It just means inclusive. It means bring more people and more experiences to the table.
And more money. And more money.
Money's very important.
Nina?
Yes, more money for all, yes. That's happening. I remain very hopeful, not just in my mind, but in everything that I see happening around me, what we're doing at Black and Sexy TV, what everyone here as part of this roundtable are doing. It's all steps toward that meaningful change. And I think sometimes, you know, ceremonies such as the Oscars are behind in reflecting that. But it's just a matter of time, and I think quick time, before we see that being vastly different.
From my standpoint, the Oscar controversy is more about an industry controversy, because the reality is who gets a trophy and who doesn't get a trophy is irrelevant to the bottom line of our business. We need to be focused on kind of what Effie was saying, on the business, the Hollywood business, in terms of inclusion, providing jobs, and actually using our positions to employ more people.
How do budgets given to black filmmakers impact their ability to get recognition?
Well, typically the way the process works at a studio is they're generating 60 to 70% of their revenues from foreign revenues in global markets. So what happens is that when you go through the green light process, they do projections based on a global analysis. So they might pre-sell movies in certain territories that happen to bring those budgets up. What automatically happens when a black film or a film with black talent is introduced, the first word in the room is that there's no foreign. So automatically you have to go into this budget level, which is basically under $10 million. And it doesn't matter who's in the film, what the story's about. It's just the first thing they're going to say is there's no foreign, without even any typical analysis. So you really have to fight to prove that there is a foreign market. And you know, one of the things is that when you look at the films this year, and even if you look in the past, there is a foreign. I mean, Straight Outta Compton is a prime example that there's a foreign market for the films. But what'll happen is when you bring that up in a room, that's an anomaly because they had music. And I say the same thing even like with Ride Along with Kevin and Ice Cube. Well, that doesn't count because of this.
Creed doesn't count.
Creed doesn't count. Oh, because it has Sylvester
No,
Stallone.
don't count.
You can bring up 10 examples, and they will have an excuse why it doesn't count.
But do you think that, in a certain way, the press, I think, is at fault because we know these numbers about Creed and Compton, but where's the articles? Where's the articles about our movies that are making money overseas? Because that's what people are looking for is hard, cold facts, not talk.
Yeah.
But can we see that in Variety? Can we see that? I mean, that's what we need.
I agree.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you a question about that because we talk about the press. Now, there's been a lot of press about these movies that are whitewashed, that have bombed hard. Exodus, nah. Gods of Egypt, no. But they keep making those. So why is it that there's this kind of a conundrum where if a film where they recast everyone as a white person bombs, they still make another one? You know, how do you explain that if it's purely a number situation?
My mother always says, "Don't try to explain crazy." It doesn't make, in my
Mother's
opinion,
a wise woman.
in my opinion, it doesn't make any sense. But what I do feel, on a positive, I feel that things are changing because it's becoming so, overt. They're like, oh, you've cast all English or Welsh people in something that takes place in Africa. There's been such a backlash that I feel, I don't know if it's a fact yet, but I feel that they won't keep making that same mistake. And I also thought it was interesting that the director, the one that's about to come out now, actually pre-apologized.
He did.
That he said, you know what, we should have done a better job of casting and being inclusive in our casting. So he knew from the Ridley Scott one that there was a problem there was a problem that was about to happen. So,
But that apology didn't work, though. It didn't work.
well, you know what? But at least it's acknowledgement. I mean, you can't we're talking about apology, but he acknowledged, and I think that's a big deal of being I
That's
can
the
no longer
beginning.
okey doke it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Acknowledge.
You have
But
to
you
acknowledge.
wonder about the sincerity behind a statement like that because, as all of you know, it takes months and months and months to plan a film. So you already know that you're casting all of these English people to play Egyptians.
And
so
the black people were the workers, though. So there were black people. They just weren't.
right.
blacks.
So it just sort of makes you wonder, what the intent is and what we're going to really see come out of the Academy's 2020 program. Do you think that that's going to result in some real change, or will we be talking about this 10 years from now again?
Well, I think we see real change already in the Academy.
Yeah.
I've been in since 2010, and literally since I got in, the whole vibe has been, who else do you know who's qualified?
Yeah, you got me in.
Yeah.
You
Last
sponsored me
year,
to get
I
in.
sponsored
Yeah.
I sponsored Effie. The year before, I sponsored Preston Holmes, and it may not be as quickly as we wanted, but it is happening.
Do you think that deadline is a fair one to think, the 2020? Does it sound doable?
It sounds very optimistic, but what's wrong with positivity? I would look for, I would hold them to it. I would look for every year to say, what are we doing? It's already happening. The governors are emailing going, who do you guys know? Who do you guys know? Who's qualified? Who can we put up? Who don't we know? Because see, part of the problem is that when you're in those rooms, they're not necessarily watching our movies. So they're not aware of who's producing it. They don't see those credits on the screen. But there's enough of us in now that I think they trust,
We can make change,
if
There, now
it wasn't
I'm
just me.
sponsoring.
It
We're all
wasn't
doing,
just me rooting for you in the room, but others.
But it took a help, and it actually took a helping hand in someone. And I will admit, I wasn't going to go for it because I already did a preemptive strike of they're never going to let me in or whatever. And then it was through Laura Kim, who was in The Publicist, if I'm not mistaken. Branch, right? Who was try it, just go. And she encouraged me to go for it. And then when you told me there was a lot of love in the room that were come on in. So I had to take a little bit of responsibility myself of being someone that I sort of self-censored myself, or I just automatically was they're not going to let me in, or I'm not even going to try it. Now that we know, if I can do it, you can do it. And then to actually see the steps in order to make it happen.
Well, Jeff, let me ask you, because you mentioned, and I know other people definitely agree with this thought, that maybe it's not so important who wins the shiny statuette, that this is about money. So what do you think could actually make a significant change? When will you know that, okay, Hollywood is finally going to make Hollywood look reflective of the population that it serves? What will that be for you?
Well, I mean, I think we are starting to see change. I mean, you saw, in the last 12 to 18 months, especially on television, because the success of certain shows, that just opened up the floodgate. Because at the end of the day, the number one color is green.
Yes,
so
exactly. It's green.
They're not
Nobody
that
cares.
naive. They're like, hey, this TV show is working. People want to watch us on TV. Let's green light some more of these television shows.
Right.
It may be a little slower on the film side, but I think we've seen a lot of development on the TV side only because it's working, which also is supported by advertisers who do a lot of research and understand the mass population, the general population and demographic. They know they need to market to this expanding demographic, where the studios and the networks are slow that change because they're sitting in Hollywood not knowing what's going on in the rest of the world, but advertisers do, and that's helping fuel the change on television side. I think the studios, I mean, we're seeing more movies, but I do think it has to do with really, we need to have our own studio.
That's true.
I mean, at the end of the day, the same people that's running studios are going to be the same people. They're not going to change, but they may. Okay, we're going to greenlight 1 or 2 movies.
Right. More.
The budgets aren't going to change until we can figure out the international. That's the other thing. So you have some much different hurdle on the studio side, but the movies are making money. It's just us. I mean, I think collectively in the community pushing to get more projects out there and being aggressive about it.
But what the fear that I have is that because diversity on camera is drawing eyeballs, that they can just do that and have white men behind the camera.
Yes.
So that it'll be more talent versus creatives.
And
Exactly.
we know that an authentic point of view gives you something so much more than a non-authentic point of view, right? The specificity, the details, the nuance, the whole thing has a different vibe to it.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, I think like inside the studios, kind of what you're saying is that there's not enough executives in a position, whether it be the marketing position, distribution, even on the creative side, that's behind the camera, that's making movies. And that's really where we need to get people in that. And it's tough because what happened is they're hiring their people. Like, head of development is hiring his people. They start as assistants and they bring them up, but it's their people. So, one of the things I'm really seeing is, like, even on the marketing side, the marketing has a lot of influence in terms of whether a movie gets going and gets greenlit. They have a lot of influence, but the marketing people in studios, they base all of their assumptions based off data. And it's data, it's NRG, it's all these testing, but the reality is, and which is a whole nother probably conversation, is the accuracy of some of this data. I mean, I have a saying that I say in the studio, they hate when I say it, but you can't track black. Because you guys,
we need that
you
t-shirt.
can't track black. I mean, really, anybody watching, how many people do you know with a box in their house?
Yeah.
Right.
Have you ever met anybody with a box?
I have gotten the box. I've been waiting on my box.
You've been waiting on the box. So the thing is, but the marketing people base their decisions off this. So one of the things, like, I see with marketing people, with marketing side of studios, they're so data reliant, but they never question the data. So as I'll just give an analogy. If they're looking at a weather report and it says it's supposed to be sunny and it's raining outside, they'll just close the blind. They don't want to know what reality is going out in the marketplace. They just want to know what's on that data. And so you have to start to challenge the data in terms of the audience.
And the thing is, we're dealing with a very, very old paradigm, very old, that was created during a time where, Hattie may have won an Oscar, but she had to sit at the colored table and go through the back door, And so I think we're really living in a time where we can do what we do best as a culture, which is be inventive. And that's what is so exciting about the digital space. In the digital space, you can make a TV series, you can make a movie, and you can appeal directly to your audience. And that, I think, is something that we really need to continue to look at as being the way to do things our way. So exactly, what Jeff is saying about you can't track black is so real and so true, because online we can congregate in as many numbers as we want to congregate in. There are no laws against this. We can speak to each other the way we want to speak to each other in our own language. Other people may co-opt that, but all of these things we have to start counting as currency as well. And we have to look at it in a way that we have to be inventive and maybe trying to play the game the same way as like trying to put the square peg in the round hole. There can be we can create different shapes. We've done this for decades and decades. We've reinvented ways of doing things, and it's the same thing Jeff is saying about marketing. There's a new way to look at marketing. At Black and Sexy, we're all black. We are speaking to our people. We're speaking to our people. There's no other people marketing for us. We market for ourselves. There's no other people writing our stories. We write our own stories. We greenlight our own stories, and that's the change. That's what we have to be about. Period, across the line, and we have to stop looking at the digital space as like something that's not real. It's very real, and it's where we thrive because we get to invent. We've been inventing since the beginning of time.
And let me ask you this though: how do content creators of color? How do they make money off of this? Like, it's obvious that they get acclaim, they're known everywhere, but I don't see personally, from a media perspective, people getting commercial deals or modeling contracts. Some of these things that seem to be very accessible to non-black meme masters, as we might call them. And I just wondered if you all have experienced that, or if you perceive that in what you've seen.
I can just say for myself, I'm now working at Lee Daniels Entertainment, and that's one of the things that we're doing is that we're going and I'm gonna call it trolling, but we're looking for the black content creators digitally so that we can vertically integrate them into television shows and our films. And I think that also sort of speaks back to the previous question, which is about black executives or people of color. Because once we're in the room, we can say, you know what? There's a whole world over here that's really entertaining, that's really about something that no one's looking at, and we're able to take it. And I know that you're about to have another conversation with the Google YouTube people, but we also just met with them, and they're doing some really innovative work on their SVOD channel, as well as actively engaging with people of color and content creators. There's actually a big event that's coming up in April, I believe, which they're pulling all of the content creators online on Google YouTube, and then we're going to go there and pilfer.
Actually, let's talk a little bit more about technology and about how these new companies, your Googles, your Netflix, your Hulus, how they're really changing the game.
The way that they run numbers at the studio system makes it very difficult to get our movies made there. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, all these places I think are really viable options. I'm about to make a movie for Netflix coming out in the next month or two. My son's directed a film. We made it. We licensed it to Netflix. Speaking of
film?
Pardon me? French Dirty. And so, there's TV shows happening. I mean, I think that there is a great wealth of interest in our stories, and, because they're the bold ones, the new frontier, I guess we're pretty attractive. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And of course, that's a big way in how your show got recognized is, through YouTube and through new technologies. So why don't you speak on that whole process?
On YouTube. We built our network. We have a network. We have a network, a studio, a distribution platform, Black and Sexy TV. It should be and is growing to be, on the same level as a Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, driven and focused on stories about and for Black people. So we started on YouTube, which was great because we didn't have to raise millions of dollars to create a technical infrastructure to actually put out years of footage that we had been filming and that was just sitting on a hard drive. We were able to put that on YouTube and consistently build that audience. And then we were able to, after 3 years of doing that, building it very strongly, create our own SVOD, which is thriving and growing month to month now. And for us, it was the best thing that we could have ever done, because the minute that we launched our SVOD, people started coming to us because now we're a real company. Now we can actually talk about the numbers we have. We can say how many paying subscribers we have, and we can grow that audience, feed that audience directly, not be a slave to any advertiser. And all of that is because we were able to start that, again, in the digital space where no one could put a barrier between us and our own people.
And of course, Code Black has been particularly innovative. I mean, over 1 million in social media, and are utilizing a lot of the new technologies to really elevate your films and projects. So speak on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, just from a marketing standpoint, I'm huge on social media and in terms of digital, because you can reach your audience in a way that's much different than you can through traditional media. So we've been very reliant on our social media platforms that we built. But also, one of the things I'm doing right now, which is starting to it's going to upset the apple cart, is I'm challenging the research companies in terms of the validity of the research and how they're doing research. So, example.
Excellent. Yes.
Because that research is determining a lot of what's greenlit. So what I did on this current campaign is we wanted to test our trailers. So we went out and got some bids, and all of the usual companies come in $30,000 to $40,000. So I said, wait a minute, I'm not gonna pay that much to test the trailer. So what I did was I took all the bids, and I kind of dug deep. Okay, what kind of questions are they asking? I wanted the criteria on how they pool, like how many people in their pool, and most of them is in between 100 to 300. So I said, look, I'm gonna get 300 people in 24 hours to subscribe to do a test. So I went to my social media, created millions of posts. I made them, got an email, and I had 300 people in 8 hours. And I had their email, I had their age, I had where they lived, I had their phone number, I had their demo, I had all that stuff. Once I had that, then I just took that pool and we did our test in 48 hours. We had our results. And so when the studio with it, they're like, they really couldn't say anything. I said, challenge me on this. I basically said, here's what I just did. Here's what they do. Challenge me. Poke a hole, and I challenge them. Poke a hole, and you really couldn't, because you can't. I got people from all of them,
all over. It's
like how you challenge it and everything. So that's where I'm like. That actually probably excites me the most right now, because it potentially can change the entire research system. Because all the companies will admit that they have trouble with African American recruits.
Right.
They say that. They'll tell you that. And they can't figure it out. Social media and digital is a new way to potentially, because I'm sitting on this big audience. It's not just about marketing, but I've got this audience that are influencers and have an opinion.
Right.
So what I'm doing right now is we're doing more tests. Like, as an example, one of the big tests when you're promoting a movie is you want to go out and see what your unaided awareness is. Basically, how many people know about the movie without mentioning movies. Like, hey, what 3 movies are you going to see in the next 90 days, which is your unaided? And NRG came back with a number, and that was out of a pool of about 118 people. I pulled 700 people doing the same methodology, and my number was much higher. So those are kind of some of the different things I'm using to test social media.
It's so good that you're doing that, because I was speaking to a traditional network executive about a series that we're doing, and they were saying, it's doing really, really well on social media. We were trending. Our series was trending on social media. But they were saying, it doesn't really translate in the ratings. I'm thinking maybe the ratings need another. And I've been really talking about this for years. Again, we're speaking about a very old paradigm that was not set up for us to necessarily succeed in. So a lot of it really needs to be dismantled, and that's really what radical shifts are about. You gotta break the whole house down, you gotta implode it, you gotta build another one, And so I'm glad that you're participating in that, because I don't really buy that something that is trending on social media has a very low rating on network. That doesn't compute. So.
Right. What can the Black community do to assist you in your goals of making product and realizing, your goals as creative executives?
Well, they need to buy tickets at
exactly. Come on,
buy tickets
no more barbershop.
Don't bootleg.
No more barbershop.
No bootlegging.
No
although there is another barbershop. Okay.
Bootlegging.
But it is. I think you're right. I'm talking about I feel that when we show up, we are trendsetters. When we show up, people notice and they follow. So I think that going to see the films that they want to see, also being able to track, and I think it's very important too, online and watching, subscribing online. But your voice, your email, it all counts. It all counts. Your tweets count. Everybody, and I know you say Black doesn't track, but I do feel I do feel that if we could find those numbers, are there to be like, there's like 1 million people that like can show up,
but
you know
they
what I mean? Like
can't
they can't. I was gonna say, because I was like, because I think that's really, really important.
But don't you think people understand Black Twitter and the power
no,
of
they do.
Black Twitter?
It does.
Now they do.
That's the thing.
Now
I think it tracks. I think it tracks in social. That's the thing.
Yeah.
In the way they're doing
But that
it,
should
you
count.
can't track.
That should
But
count
if you
because
saw-
there's
But I think
eyes
it's starting
watching.
to
That's not
count.
true, but
You
it's
know?
I mean, I
wrong.
literally was in a room with all white executives, and somebody said Black Twitter, and they went, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
I love that.
It's like, Black Twitter will come for you.
Yeah.
But also,
Yeah.
As Matt Damon well knows.
I think also, this may sound a little controversial, but I think also that we should re-examine how we release movies too.
Yes.
You know,
I agree.
and this
I
is like
agree.
with Dear White People. I feel Dear White People could have been
Bigger.
much bigger. If only a couple things. One, I don't think it benefits us to show our films at every single festival out there, because you got to kind of hold it back a little bit. No, I'm not on the marketing team for it. This is me looking at the film. A lot of people already saw it who would have paid to go see it, and then when we start
that's
seeing movies, then other people that we paid for, other people say, "Oh, I want to start seeing those movies." And if you only release it to our targeted places where those specific strip of Black people that want to see that film, release it there, let it blow up there, let it blow up, then everybody's going to want to see it after that. But it's just a weird thing of like, when you put it out there to a lot of people, which is how it's traditionally done, let's get it in as many theaters as we can. I don't know, it's just kind of like they don't appreciate what we're putting out there until we make it hot. You know, and that's another social media thing. We make a word hot, we make whatever hot, then all of a sudden everybody wants it. But if we put it out there like, oh, you guys should go watch this, they don't want it.
But I think the festival route for that movie wasn't about us. That was about the rest of them. Where I think that we overexposed was all the college campuses.
Yeah,
that was
that's
our
where,
real bread and butter, and we showed it everywhere.
But also, there's a flip side of also being a part of the, Dear White People. It's word of mouth. Like that, do you know what I mean? It's us, like when we're in the barbershops, the beauty salons, churches, going to see, and you need someone to be able to see it, to be like, yo, you should go see that.
Yeah.
Because it is really hard, because as we know, and you can probably speak to this more, is that our movie was done for, I'm going to just say, I can talk about like under $2 million, right? So it's a little movie, but they had to put in, I don't know how many millions to even try to penetrate the market, or to sort of bust through, because the studios, like if a movie costs $20 million, they're spending 20 or 30 just in marketing and advertising. They're not doing, and that's nothing to do with us. We talked before about being inventive with our budgets. We can do a lot with a little, but once we deliver this beautiful little baby, we're like, how do you put it out there? And they don't want to put all that much more money on it. So that was one of the reasons, like the festivals and all of that. I think.
What do you guys think about Day and Date? Because
I love it.
always thought that my movies would do better Day and Date, because people who wanted to go to the movie theaters could go, but all my sisters, everybody could watch it.
Oh my God.
And they would have watch parties.
Beautiful HGTVs.
Again, it's that old paradigm. They don't want us to change it.
I think
they don't want us to change it. But if we say, look, this is how we're doing it, then that's how we're doing it. And then when it starts working,
they're like, we want to do it
now
like that.
But it's interesting.
Oh, you're right. I mean, whoever thought there would be a time where you would watch an entire season of something and binge watch
In
all
one
of it.
weekend.
That didn't even
In one day.
exist.
In
Like I
one
watched
night.
Orange is the New Black in like, I don't know, a weekend, you know?
Yeah.
So I do think that those paradigms can be shattered. But speaking of shattering things, one thing I would appreciate if everybody could address, one of the things I think and why Gil and I came together is because we're fighting a lot of stereotypes from the mainstream media. Can you say what is the one singular mainstream media stereotype that hurts Black film or hurts Black content creators that you personally would like to see cleared up, whatever it is, whether it's that it doesn't do well overseas, or that you have to put a ton of marketing in, or that the social media doesn't translate, anything that hasn't been touched on before?
I feel, and this is me personally speaking, I am tired of having them seeing the Black people in pain, of having to do those biopics and be like, oh, like, because the old white, in my opinion, this is once again nothing for anybody else, but in my opinion, like, they'll love to go see that. You know what I mean? The Black woman in pain, biopic, and she was the first, and you're just like, for the love of Jesus, can we not be like our own superhero? Can we not do like our own Big Short? Can we not do, you know what I mean? Like we have, and that's what I want to see, where they're just all of a sudden like, oh, like the award-winning films, like we have to see you a maid, a slave, and I'm sorry, or a gang member, or like shucking and jiving. And those movies are good. You know, I gave my little $10, $15 to see most of them.
To what?
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, come on, don't call it out. But anyway, but like that's the thing that I want. I want to see that be over, and I want to, because that's so pervasive that I think it even gets into the Black community, into our heads, that like, oh, that's, you know, like that's all that we get to see ourselves.
But
as.
even
It
see
drives me
that, I
crazy.
think the only way that's going to change is if we change it.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
You know
that's
what
what
I
we're
mean?
doing. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm with
no,
you.
no, no.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just mean that
It's
that whole
exhausting.
Chris Rock thing about whooping with the mop, going, you know, like, is this really a movie about a woman who invented a mop? You know?
I know,
But why not? But why not? That's a powerful story. But what about all the things
Right.
we've invented
Right.
too? It's
Well,
true.
exactly.
You know, I want to see
The peanut for sure.
Yeah.
Peanut, I
Yeah, peanuts everywhere. Yeah, that's
peanut
like a really good black woman.
I can put an SNL skit. That SNL skit with like Eddie Murphy.
Crazy. You know, I want to see more Black men and women in love on screen. That's
Love
really,
that.
really
What are you talking
something
about?
that I
That's
think that would just
Yeah.
be so good for all of us to see that, you know, because you know the way that it is right now, you just would just not think that we are interested in each other at all. You know,
Right.
that there's
That's true.
that there's no value there, that there's like
We don't find
very
ourselves attractive.
very little of a dynamic there. I mean, there's some, you know, but I would like to see more. And I think that a lot of times even when unfortunately, you know, Black writers are writing things, they think, oh, I need to make this character. Yeah, I gotta make, you know, the love interest be this type or be not this, or it's just not gonna work. And, you know, that's just, you know, many, many years of being told that that's how it has to be, you know. And I would like to see that different, and I'm definitely doing everything I can do to make that different.
And we appreciate you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie?
Well, I think both these things are awesome. You know, I think I would like to see the press more accurately report our successes overseas, especially. That should just be a running, like they should institute that in the Hollywood Reporter, in Variety, like what's happening, how do we track what is happening around the world and our images around the world. Because I think, like you said, that the folks in power, they just need to see it in black and white. Ha, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But
No,
they
you're right.
really do want to see it. They don't want to feel it. They don't want to talk about it. They just want to see the facts on paper. So I think it would be great if we had more facts on paper. And with the work you're doing with the new research and
yeah.
not
So important.
I think
Crack that
that's
nut.
Well,
But that can
again,
change the game. That's what I'm waiting. I'm like,
so
oh, this is the
needed.
cat right here.
And something else that Jeff did recently was when Kevin's last film was coming out, David shared this story with us, Spitz, over at Lionsgate, how they had a plan and they took it to Jeff. And Jeff was like, well, no, we need to maybe consider this. And it really made a difference in terms of the bottom line.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I
talk
think,
on that.
I think I'm talking about, to your question about stereotypes and the way we're perceived. I think I'm gonna speak more, not from a creative standpoint, but from an executive standpoint. Is I have there's a term called fail up. Fail up is this. I see executives at studios tank a studio, presidents and CEOs tank a studios, and then 30 days later they pop up with a $100 million film fund, but yet they fail. As a black executive, if I tank like that, I'm done.
Yeah.
I get one chance.
Yeah.
It's like once you get
Directors
inside,
too.
directors
Yeah.
too. Yeah, same thing with directors. You get the one chance.
You better
If it
not.
doesn't work,
Game
you're
over.
done. You're done. It's just a perception. But then that's a good point on the directors. You see, directors get 5 chances.
Oh, yeah.
Black
I'm
director, they're gonna hey, we gave you your shot. Doesn't work, you're done. As an executive, if I miss or have a wide miss, it's the attitude is almost, hey, we gave you a chance, but
We gave you a shot, buddy.
so you almost have to be perfect all the time. It's a lot of pressure to try to be perfect all the time.
Yeah.
But the part of the problem is that as a black executive inside the company is when you go in with an idea or go with some they kind of look at you, but then they gotta go talk to 5 people to validate. Oh yeah, you know what you said makes sense, but it's because they went around to validate what you said. I can't just walk in a room and know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It has to get validated. And so you face those kind of things all the time from a stereotype thing. And even when you're doing something and it's working, then there's an attitude. I had a company 15 years ago called UrbanWorks, and I was partnered with a distributor. So this is a true story. So UrbanWorks, we were doing great. We were first ones in the game, doing a lot of business. So the company okay, that's just working. Excuse my language, but it was working. So they said, we're going to start LatinWorks. All right. Okay, that's just you trying to do what I'm doing.
Right.
Instead of coming to me and say, hey, well, Jeff, maybe why don't you build out what you're doing and run the LatinWorks?
Right.
They bring in a white executive to run LatinWorks, not even a Latin person.
Sure.
And then they started StudioWorks.
Yeah.
So they just modeled what I was doing. Neither of them worked, but that's the attitude way. If he can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
You can't be you possibly can't be doing something that we can't do. That's the stereotype you face when you're inside. There's no way you can be smarter than them. Right. Look at this. That's what I face on a daily. Is that being inside is like there's no way you can be smarter. Like this is the conversation now with the social media. Because to be frank, I'm running holes around their social media marketing executives. So you go in a room and they're just like.
They're mad.
They're mad and they're looking. It's like, I know, you go talk to somebody else if you don't think what I'm saying is right. So that kind of goes to the story with the Davis Spitz. They had their way they want to do marketing. I'm like, no, we got to go like this. Kevin is bigger than that. I don't care what your tracking said. And this is true story. So when we were releasing the movie, the tracking was saying that the movie wasn't performing well. But on my social media, the way I track it, I track social media. I said, no, we're off to scale. And so they wanted to put in more P&A money. So we fought back and forth, and ultimately I won the argument, and then it was a success. But based on their tracking, no, that was
Tell me everything. Yeah.
That was. That was a let me explain. That was let me explain. Which said 32 million. So it was tracking, and based on all their data they were getting, it wasn't tracking as good as it should be. Based on Twitter, social media, Instagram, and everything.
And you were like, it's
I'm looking
fantastic.
at we're through the roof. Because we're looking at the engagement, the video views, and YouTube. You know, we're looking at. I'm looking at a bunch of. I'm not just depending on, but I'm looking at a bunch of metrics coming across social media. So they wanted to increase. Hey, no, we need to spend more money. I said, no, we don't. We're good because we had a big problem participation in the movie. And Kevin like, no, we don't need to spend more money because we know we're good, right? Because you spending more money just going to take away another back.
We spend more money.
Right. You don't see it. So the thing is, our tracking was much different from their tracking. But our tracking, we were purely using social and instinct in the market. See, there's one thing being in an office and trying to determine what's going on in the community versus being in the community and of the community and calling my aunt back east in Pittsburgh. Hey, y'all know about this movie? Calling my cousins.
Like going to the movie theater.
Yeah, you know, it's stuff like that. It's just those instinctive things that we can do inside the community that they can't do.
Yeah.
And so we ultimately, they went with us and it was right.
But you were willing to take that risk.
Yeah,
You're putting quite a bit on the line.
99% sure I was right. It wasn't like I had a question.
Like you were,
I don't. When I look at the energy stuff, when I say you're sampling basically 100 people, 118 people, and the high you're sampling 300 people. So you're talking about there's 44 million black people in the country. You got 300 people, and that's telling me what's happening in the marketplace? No.
And you're sampling 100 people at the Santa Monica Promenade.
Exactly.
If you look at the sample pool, it's a small sample pool, and that's how they're determining a lot of, especially on TV and stuff like that. It's a small sample pool. These black boxes, Nelson boxes. How many houses are they in? And where are they at? I mean, it's because the thing is, our audience is not monolithic. So if you think about this, is that we have a lot of commonalities, but then there's also cultural differences based on region. So if you're in the South and you're listening to music, that music might be different from when you're in DC if they're playing go-go music.
Yeah.
We still might go see the same movie, but there's nuances that we just know about because we're in the community.
Yeah.
And you address those kind of things in your marketing.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's mind blowing for them. Yeah.
This has been fantastic.
No, it's
You know,
I just want to thank everybody for coming out and for being so honest, and we're going to do our part from the media perspective to try to get the word out.
And can we also say that, you know, Birth of a Nation is a game changer? It's so important on so many levels because his approach to the material, because he didn't shy away from this black man going and killing everybody, like called from God to do so, because he used the Birth of a Nation title, because before Birth of a Nation there were maybe 100 KKK members in the country, and afterwards there were 4 million, and that is the power of imagery, speaking to stereotypes and how we have to, our job is to really undo all of the harm that has been done, and all of us together can do it with an audience that really supports. So people should go and see that movie.
Absolutely.
Pay money to see it.
Absolutely.
And
pay money 2
that's
times.
right.
See twice.
Well, thank you again.
Thank
This
you,
was
guys.
fantastic.